Whoa. How is everybody? Lively, it looks like. We got Austin that is sick at home with COVID. We love you, Austin, and we miss you, and we're praying for you. Yeah, let's worship.
For the living well, only you can satisfy. Sweetness at the mercy seat, now I've tasted, it's not hard to see. You will always satisfy. There's honey in the rock, water in the stone, men on the ground, no matter where I go. I don't need to worry now that I know everything I need you've got. There's honey in the rock. Freedom where the Spirit is, bounty in the wilderness. There's honey in the rock, water in the stone, men on the ground, no matter where I go. I don't need to worry now that I know everything I need you got. There's honey in the rock, purpose in your plan, power in the blood, healing in your hands. Started flowing when you said that it's done. Jesus, who you are is enough. There's honey in the rock. I keep looking, you keep finding. I keep giving, keep providing. I have all that I need. You are all that I need. I keep praying, you keep moving. I keep praising, you keep proving. I have all that I need. You are all that I need. I keep looking, I keep finding, you keep giving, you keep providing. I have all that I need. You are all that I need. I keep praying, you keep moving. I keep praising, you keep proving. I have all that I need. You are all that I need. There's honey in the rock, water in the stone, men on the ground, no matter where I go. I don't need to worry now that I know everything I need you've got. There's honey in the rock, purpose in your plan, power in the blood, healing in your hands. Started flowing when you said that it's done. Jesus, who you are is enough. There's honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock. use someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve it. You take the broken things and raise them to glory. 'Cause you are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you won, and I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. Now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. This is my victory. 'Cause you are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you won, I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. And when I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. And when I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. And when I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me. 'Cause you are my champion. Giants
give it up for Dave.
Somebody got way too close. It wasn't me. Okay, so now that everybody's awake, a couple announcements. First is Glenn has started the Helping Hands Ministry, and if you want to help with that, what we're going to do is like people that can't afford to get work that needs to be done at their house done, we're going to like pitch in and do that. So if you want to sign up to help with those projects, you can sign up at the Connect table downstairs. And we have our first job, and we're trying to raise $1,800 to build this wheelchair ramp. So when we take up the offering, if you guys are giving towards that, just write that that's what you're giving to him. And then something brand new, I think they started it this Monday, is Missy's Peace Warriors. Was it last Monday? So that'll be every Monday at 6 p.m. And it's kind of like a, if I'm not wrong, it's like a support thing, right? Yeah. Okay. And then we have a Serve Team Interest meeting March 5th after morning service. And then our evening service, we have our pajama theme night. So make sure you wear your pajamas to church. And then the creative team meeting has been moved to March 12th after morning service. And then Saturday, March 18th, at Lynn Street, we're going to do another block party just like we did last year. We're going to be trying to, there'll be free food, music, Cam Band's going to be there. We're going to have some people that are like local Christian artists. So it'll be a good time. You should come out to that for sure. And then May 13th is the movement. It'll be at City Park from 12 to 4. And I heard there's going to be a bunch of people there and a couple other artists that you guys might know. Okay, so now we're going to take up the offering. So, Father, we just pray that you guide us, that you look over our speaker as he speaks, guide him in the direction that they need to reach somebody that may need to hear something they're hearing. And we pray that the offering is taken to advance your kingdom. Amen. I don't know why I got stuck. Okay. So, I don't know why I get super nervous when I pray, but I do. Okay, so I don't really have a lot because I didn't really know that I was supposed to be up here. I figured Austin would be up here. But I do have, so the verse of the day is Philippians 1:6, and it says, "And I am certain that God who began good works within you will continue his works until it's finally finished upon the day that Jesus Christ returns." So if you ever like feel like God's just not doing nothing for me, like I get that way sometimes. I feel like I'm trying, but it's just not, I don't feel it. Just remember that the word promises that he won't quit until it's finished. So our first speaker, I've known this guy a while, on both sides of the spectrum. So he was always a really good guy. He just had bad intentions at one point, but he'll tell you about that. I'll give you Max Wilson.
Well, obviously my name's Max, and I want to say that first I've been clean for 15 months and 2 days. 2 days. The most important day of my sobriety was today. As a matter of fact, today was the most important day. I've worked 12 steps. I do sponsor guys, and this is the 8th lead or testimony that I have gave during my sobriety. I'm working in Charleston, and I'm working 10s, so that's why I was a few minutes late getting here. But it gave me an hour-and-a-half drive here. And I struggled with, during that drive, what are you going to say, like this and that and the other. And I kept going back and like, why are you giving this? Why are you worried about what you're going to say? You know, I mean, because my hopes here, speaking here right now, is that you don't hear anything that Max Wilson has to say. Nothing. Everything that comes from me, I ask God's will for my life, and any words spoken from me to reflect upon my life now. During my life, at an early age, I was trying to fill a void. I didn't even know what the void was. I didn't know how I was going to fill it, but I knew that the void was there. I knew that I was missing something. Like a lot of other people, I'm sure, I searched for a lot of other things to fill this void with, and drugs, alcohol, sex, you name it. If I tried it all. I tried all these things repeatedly. Dealing drugs, supposedly having this power that I felt that it gave me. Money. I thought that if I had enough money, that would fill this void, because if I had this house, or I had this Harley, if I had this or that and the other, that this void was going to go away. But the void was always there still. No matter how much drugs I had, it was never enough. No matter how much money I had in my pocket, it was never enough. No matter what car I was driving, it was never enough. I needed more than one. I needed a bike too. I needed all these things. And throughout my journey, I sold out to have these things. I did things that I knew the whole time that I was doing it, that it wasn't right. I knew that I was destroying other people. I didn't care. I would step on them to get the void filled. No matter what, there was something missing. There was something missing. But you see, prison was never enough. None of these repercussions from my lifestyle was enough. I would go to prison, I would come out, I would do the same thing that got me in prison to begin with. Of course, when I would be arrested, when I would get to the jail, all of a sudden I would hit my knees. But when I would do that, I would be only praying, God, get me out of here. I would try to make a deal with God. If you will get these charges dismissed, I will do this, or I'll do that. I didn't grow up in a very religious home, so I didn't have a lot of knowledge of the Bible and the way things were until this last episode, 15 months, or closer to about 16 months ago. The cops kicked my door in for I don't know how many time. I was facing 12 to 100 years at this point. And I know what you're thinking right now. Oh, that got you. Looking at 12 years. Wouldn't have fazed me. What happened was I had a 3-year-old in the house where the drugs were. And in the bus, they took my 3-year-old. And when they took him, they said, when I got out on bond immediately, of course, they said, well, you can't see him until you give us 2 clean urine screens. Now I'm here to tell you that facing 12 to 100 years wouldn't have stopped me. It would not have stopped me. What it would have done is I would have told myself another lie and said, now you got to go hard because you need this money for this bonds lady. You need this money for this lawyer. And you're going to prison anyway. No way around that. It's impossible for you to get any other sentence. You're a two-time loser. You just got out of prison 5 years ago. Impossible. Well, my message to everyone here today is this. Nothing, and I mean nothing, nothing is impossible when you have Jesus in your heart and in your life. There's nothing that's impossible. I can assure you that in my lifetime, for most of my life, up until 15 months ago, I was a soldier for Satan. I was taking souls. I bet you he probably would have gave me an award for the hardest worker. I'm sure of it. The void, that's where I was going with this. Okay, so they come to me, they say you gotta have 2 clean screens. I'm so bad on fentanyl because I never knew what it was like to be sick from fentanyl because I was a drug dealer who never ran out. For over a year, I did fentanyl every day and still did not know what it was like to be sick. Well, I found out what it was like to be sick, finally. I found out what my customers were crying about. I figured that out real quick. And there was a struggle right out the gate of a new addiction and a new, because this wasn't just, man, I'd like to do some more dope. This was, I have to do some more dope because if I don't, this is never going to stop. And I know a lot of people say they struggled from heroin. They withdrew for 7 to 10 days because I know it's what they told me at the detox place, that once you make it past 7 or 10 days, you're going to be fine. 30 days, every bit of it, every bit of it. I didn't have anywhere to turn. I didn't know what to do. I went to a detox. I left that detox. I was still sick. I was still sick. And was very close to picking up a time or two to make it stop, However, I had to have these 2 clean urine screens. And like I said, they also said I probably would be clean. My urine would be clean in 7 to 10 days. 30 days, every bit of it, 30 days, still caught. That was a rough 30 days, and I'll tell you what, I want to tell you what happened to me. So I'm out at the detox center, and I'm laying in bed, and I'm so sick I can't get up, and the remote control batteries would not work, and the TV was on. And at first, I really wasn't paying attention to what was on the TV. You know what I mean? My mind was going so many different places. But then I heard something about recovery. So, oh, here we go with this. And then I see everybody standing up and they're praising, and I'm like, oh, here we go with that stuff, you know, I guess. Then I noticed a guy that I knew. I was like, what is he like? Look at him. God, he looks so much better. Like, than the last time I seen him, he was buying crack off of me, and he was in a very bad way. And that had been, at the time, 7 or 8 years prior to that. And as I was trying not to pay attention to it, but my attention was being drugged back to it, I kept noticing him, and he was repeatedly standing up and praising. And it dawned on me, I was like, God, he was in bad shape. Look at him. And I heard that he got clean. And obviously he stayed that way. And I called my then fiance, who now is my wife, but I called her into the room and I said, hey, is this live? Or is this like, well, it was Sunday. but I didn't know if this had been taped properly. I really didn't know. And she said, yeah, this is live feed. It's happening right now. I said, take me there. Let's go. I want to go there right now because look at him. Look at what's going on with him. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do. I know I can't go get high like I usually do, or I'm never going to see my. Not only am I not going to see him now, they're going to take him from me, and he's 3. He's 3. So we get in the car. Funny story, we went to the wrong church. We went to the wrong place altogether. And we walk in the door, and they got a counter. So I walk straight to the counter. And I'm like, hey, where's such and such? I don't want to bring any names into this. But I say, hey, where's he at? And she says, oh, honey, this isn't where he goes to church. I can tell you where he goes to church at, though. And so she's telling me where he's at this different church, but my fiance goes to a pastor standing there and asks for the pastor, which she asked for who she walked up to talk to. And I walk over to tell her we're in the wrong place. This isn't where we were going. We're not supposed to be here. We're supposed to be somewhere else. And when I said that to her, the guy leaned out and he said, no, you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. That's where you are. And then it dawned on me. Oh, I remember you. So the pastor that told me that I was exactly where I was supposed to be, I had a run-in with him 6 months prior to that at a funeral. There was 150 people at my uncle's funeral. He overdosed, and we were at this funeral. And when the funeral was over, I was walking to the car, and this same guy said, hey, I need to talk to you. I thought he wanted paid. Oh, he wanted paid, okay. Well, how much is this going to be? What is it? You know what I mean? He's like, that's not why I called you over here. He said, you're not dealing with this death. You're not. Now, this uncle of mine was like my brother. I was a year older than him. We grew up as children. We grew up at my grandmother's house. He was my best friend in the world. Anyway, so the pastor says, you're not dealing with this. You're not dealing with this. And I can only imagine now the look I had about me that day after being strung out for so long. And I was going hard after that death. I'm the one that rolled up and found him that way. And that day he told me at the funeral, he said, you're not dealing with this death. And I said, how do you deal with something like this? And he said, well, there's only one way. And have you ever thought about giving your heart to Jesus? Have you ever? And that's not what I wanted to hear that day. It's not what I wanted to hear that day. I can tell you that. It was falling on deaf ears. I was trying to get to the car. So I tell you what, why don't you give me your phone number? Or tell me where this church is that you pastor, and I'll come there and we'll do this some other time. I went on about my way. 6 months of running and gunning is not the word for it, Death wish, more like it. Flirting with death daily, knowing what I was doing, didn't care. Wallowing in self-pity is exactly what I was doing. But you know what? There was a lot of things that I didn't know that day that I know now. So I can deal with anything. There is nothing that can be put on my plate that I can't deal with. Nothing. The Bible tells me how to deal with everything in my life. There's nothing. The things that I've learned in this last 15 months, they're filling a void. They're filling a void. My cup runs over. I used AA when I first went to AA and NA. I went there to learn how to not do drugs. So I'm going to tell you something. I stuck it out. I worked 12 steps. I still work 12 steps daily. Every day of my life I work them. But the gift was never not using drugs, because the drugs was only a Band-Aid. They were what I used to cover up the other problems that I had. And it's this void that no drug, no amount of money, no amount of women, none of this stuff's ever going to fill that void. I tried that. But over this last 15 months, I found the answer. I found the answer to the void. I'll tell you one thing I really want to point out is, like I said from the beginning, you can't tell me that something's impossible. You can't tell me that, because there's nothing, absolutely nothing that my God can't handle. There's nothing. I live a totally different life at this point, a life that I could never have imagined 15 months ago. And if you would have told me 15 months ago that I would enjoy my life without a pocket full of money and a car and an unbelievably big bag of drugs in the house, I would have said that's not possible. But like I said, all things are possible. All things. What I would say to anyone who has no hope is, you can't tell me that you can come to a point where there's no hope. It's because if you do, I want to remind you that I was facing 12 to 100 years. I was a third-time felon. Drug charges, assault charges. I was so in line that for the habitual criminal that it was impossible that I could ever get probation. It was. Or so I thought. I know a lot of people will say, well, you went to this, you did the outpatient, you did this and that. No, you had a good lawyer, you this and that and the other. I had the same judge who sentenced me 5 years prior to that. He sentenced me to 2 consecutive terms. He said, when you get done with that one, put the wheels on it and do it again. I said, oh, but I need to go to rehab. He said, well, we have one for you. It's in the West Virginia penal system, and it's called RSAT, and I'm going to be assured that you're going to do that before you're released. Like, that's going to happen. I know now that I was not willing. I had no willingness. I had none. It wasn't until everything had been stripped. Everything. But what I know now is God has a plan for me. I have purpose. I'm still a soldier. I'm definitely a soldier. I promise you that. I'm a disciple. My job is to spread the word, to give people hope, to let them know that you can be free. Because you see, I found freedom. I found freedom. And I found it through Jesus Christ. Listen, guys, I could do this for hours. I'm a talker, okay? I could do this every evening. I could do this for hours on end. But the point of this whole thing is, nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. There's always hope. There's one who has all the answers. If you've suffered loss, understand that we are, even as Christians, even as believers, there's trials. Because my life's not always perfect, and everything doesn't always go perfect. It doesn't. A lot of very good things have happened to me in 15 months. But some bad things come along here and there. But it's not about whether good things or bad things are going to happen, because both things are going to happen. But when you have Jesus in your life, and when you know, because I used to say, well, I think I'm going to go to heaven now. When I first got saved, when I got left in a tank, I still was like, well, I don't know, man. Like I said, I was a soldier for Satan. Like I didn't, I was still working this balance thing. I had the justice scale still in my head. But knowing what I know now, it's not about I think I'm going to heaven. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to heaven. I'm going to reunite with the loved ones. So it's not I'll never see them ever again. It's when it's my time, we'll reunite in that kingdom. I found a lot of solitude in that. That's helped me deal with a lot of things. God has dealt with a lot of my shortcomings. He has delivered me 100%. I don't crave drugs. I don't crave alcohol. I owe a lot to the program, but I owe everything to Jesus. Thanks for letting me speak tonight.
Good job. Thanks, Max. Okay, so I kind of did, we kind of put somebody on the spot. We're, here at the Reach, we're really good at doing that. So our next speaker, you guys know well. I'll give you guys Justin.
How's everybody doing? Well, I'm Justin, and I'm an addict. I'm really nervous. It's only the second time I've done this in my life. So, I was born in Newton Falls, Ohio. Grew up in West Virginia, Fairmont. I had a pretty good childhood. Couldn't have asked for any better from my parents. I met friends. I wasn't a very popular kid. I used to be a pretty short, stubby kid, so I wasn't the fan favorite in school. I learned that real quick that I had to do what everybody else did to fit in. I got beat up all the time throughout school, through my childhood. My mom just thought it was just a phase, but that continued, sadly, for like about 10, 15 years almost. I was pulled out of school. I actually got the chance to graduate. I'm going to try to speed it up as much because I do a lot of talking. I'm ADHD. But I was pulled out of school in about 9th grade, and I got the chance to graduate in 9th grade with a diploma. And I don't know how I pulled that off because I guessed on all the math questions, but I guess that worked out. When I graduated early, that was a big mistake. Later on, I didn't realize at that time. Everybody I was friends with in school, they were going about their lives in school, doing after-school things, and I had all day long, every day, by myself to do whatever I wanted to explore things. And in that case, I was roaming the town and finding out where I shouldn't have been. Weed was a big thing in Fairmont. I don't know if anybody knows what middies are, I'm sure, but that's all they had. They didn't have the best. So I started doing that. It didn't really do much for me. Like I said, I'm ADHD, so I just went to sleep, woke up twice as hyper. I seen most of my friends just kind of separated. I met about a group of 40 people, and we thought we were the kings of Fairmont, being 15, 16 years old, selling weed. That's pretty much what my life revolved around for the next year. And then I found a girl to talk to, and that's where it went downhill for me. That's going to be most of my downfalls. I didn't listen to my mom at all. I went to this house, and she asked me, because I had a car at a very young age, and I got caught driving a few times I wasn't supposed to. But as soon as I got my license, it was game over. I was driving everywhere. I got lost. I went to houses, sat outside to pick people up I didn't even know. I just wanted to give them a ride so I could drive my car for an excuse. And one day, this girl that I was dating, she told me to come pick her up, and I pulled up this house, and I knew it was a bad sign whenever they didn't really have walls. They just had tarps. And I didn't know where I was at. It was kind of sketchy. And I heard a vacuum cleaner running because there's no walls, so I could hear it running. I was like, well, it's got power, so I guess it can't be that bad on the inside. It was pretty bad. I went inside, and they were sweeping the hardwood floor, like the actual floor before they laid it down, like just the plain wood. There was even holes in the floor. They were getting the sweeper stuck in. And I was like, what's going on here? And I had beer. I'd stolen beer from a gas station because I wasn't old enough to buy beer. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and start getting drunk because I don't know what's going on here. And they're like running around the house. And you ever see those posts on Facebook? There are people sweeping the roofs and stuff. That's what it looked like inside the house, except there's 3 of them. She comes up with this glass pipe, and she's like, here, hit this. And I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, I don't know what it might, but like, I was like, it's not a vape. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm just sitting there holding it. I was like, it's a glass tube. There ain't nothing in it. And she tried to light it for me, and I took a hit of it and it didn't really do anything for me. I was like, well, this was a waste of my time. I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and leave because they sweat for about an hour and a half in the same room. Yeah, it was quite a while of just, I mean, that floor was clean. I ended up running into some friends I went to school with by the time they got out of high school. They I don't know what they were into. They started, I think, during high school. And I ran into a problem where I liked to total cars or break them. I thought I could work on them before I knew what I was doing, so I just started cutting things off of it and thought it sounded cool. My mom spent way too much money on cars, so if she's watching this live, I apologize. I rode with somebody to a town. The only reason why I know roads in West Virginia or up and down the East Coast on certain states is just because I got really high and decided to go drive in places that I didn't need to go. So I found myself in another back road somewhere. And they had this plate. They had a mirror with lines cut up on it, and they said, here. And I was like, well, what is this? I was like, you guys just keep feeding me stuff. I don't know what it is, and it's not doing nothing. She goes, oh, this will do something for you. And she told me it was meth. And I was like, well, it kind of looks like the stuff in that pipe that girl tried to hand me, and it didn't do nothing, you know what I mean? So I snorted a line. I was like, I didn't do nothing. They said, oh, it will. I was like, well, give me like 2 more, because I was like, I'm sick and tired of wasting my time. So I just did the rest of it on the plate because for my first time, did the rest of it on the plate, and they were kind of ticked off. Well, they were really ticked off whenever we got back to the house because that was, like I said, that was my first time, so I went a little AWOL. I found myself standing on a scale trying to weigh myself for 24 hours. I don't know if I was watching myself lose weight or not, but it wasn't any better. They were sitting at the bar coloring a picture for 24 hours, so it was, in my defense, I know it's going to sound bad, but it was fun in the beginning. I'm sure everybody had fun in the beginning, but it went downhill really quick. I lived with somebody. My mom's like, oh, why don't you try to go out and get a job? I was like, no, I'm good. I can survive. I'm eating pizza rolls and smoking meth. I didn't tell her that, but I was slowly losing weight. My mom knew. She thought it was just because I used to have a problem with depression, and I get stressed out really easily, and I don't take medication for it. I don't know why. I just don't like taking medication. If I'm sick, I don't like taking medication. So I just told her it was because I was depressed, and she was like, well, why don't you go see a doctor about it? And I was like, yeah, well, he can't help me with my problems. What's he going to do? Talk me through it and make me feel better. And I slowly started getting hooked onto it. I've noticed I could go like a weekend or a week without it, and then it just started getting worse. I felt like I just didn't want to wake up without having it in the room. Well, shortly after that, my mom decided to come to the house where we were all at, and I had already been raging on this stuff for like 2-3 weeks, didn't even know it. And I weighed about 120 pounds. In the matter of just a couple weeks, I lost, like, at the time, I think it was like 60 pounds. And I didn't know because I just didn't eat. I didn't drink water. All I did was just smoke. My mom and my stepfather came in, and 2 people walked out and confronted them, and they were like, what are you doing here? She's like, oh, I'm here to see my son in his house. And they were gonna fight my mom in the backyard, and I didn't even know what was going on. I was in my bedroom, and they came running. They said, these 2 old people just came up here. They were running their mouth, and it was like, we about whooped them in the backyard. And then I get a text message from my mom. She goes, "I hate your friends." And I was like, oh, that must have been my mom that came out in the backyard. I disappeared after that for a while. There was a lot of people who thought I had died just from being new to the drugs and just going on benders and not answering nobody. I really hurt my family at this point in my life. My mom used to call crying. She was like, just tell me you're alive. I would just purposely sit there and not answer, and I'd be like, okay, and just hang up the phone. And I was emotionless. That drug made me emotionless. I didn't have any feelings. I was numb. I had already seen some things in houses that most people don't want to see when they're zooming on drugs, but I apparently thought it was funny just because I was so high. So I didn't realize I was numbing myself the entire time and slowly hurting my family as well. I'm going to go back a little bit. I had a little boy in 2017, and I was not the best of father. I mean, I was young, so I didn't know what I was doing. I was only 19 years old, and I had kind of just gave up on my family. Didn't even realize that I chose drugs and making money over my family, and I can't ever apologize enough for that. So I just decided one day it was just time to stop apologizing, move on, and he will live a better life with her and their family. And I got child support in the mail, and I just decided, well, we'll fix this if I go get high. So I went and got high some more, and then I ran into some people that I never thought that would change my life for the remaining time that I was high. They were part of one of the really big motorcycle clubs in West Virginia. I'm sure everybody's heard of the 1%ers and all that stuff, so I'll just throw that out there. I wanted to be just like them because I found out my dad was just like them. And I was like, well, this is going to be fun. I'm going to get real high now. I was like, 'cause half of them looked like their eyes were about to bug out of their head. And they looked like they were healthy and bigger-sized people, so I was like, they can show me how to stay healthy. I can go ride a bike. I can do whatever I want. I can get away with whatever I want. And it just, that's not how it works. I started hanging out with them. First, I started hanging out with their kids. We would go and just park cars in the middle of the street, and I would just run out. And since I got beat up in school, I went to learn how to fight, and I was the guy that they would force to go outside the vehicle and go beat up whoever they pointed at. I got my first charge before I was even 18, and it was a conspiracy to commit a murder just because I know how to fight and he didn't. So they charged me with knowingly how to fight versus somebody that didn't know how to fight because I knew how to whoop him and he didn't. So they dropped that charge down to a misdemeanor, and I just did probation, paid a fine. At that time, my mom was real disappointed in me because she didn't really hear from me. I was just in and out of the house. And that's when it just went downhill. I met people slowly over time that lived in different houses throughout the town, got so used to those people, and they got so used to my company that I was now at the point in my life where I never had to pay for drugs at all. I could walk into any house and get high. That's what started to hurt me when I realized that money wasn't even needed at this point. I continued down my journey, and I found somebody shooting up drugs in my bathroom, and I was like, this guy's crazy. I don't even know what he's doing right now. I was like, is he diabetic or something? And I'd never seen anybody with diabetic in their elbow, you know what I mean? And he was like, well, here. He was like, I'm gonna mix one up for you. He's like, it'll be the best time of your life. And I was like, all right, whatever. I've already done this much. Well, what he didn't tell me was he was whipping up a hot shot, if anybody knows what that is. As soon as he put it in my arm, I immediately fell to the floor, and it's the most excruciatingly painful thing I've ever endured, still to this day. What it does is pretty much turn your blood into concrete. And for some reason, I was perfectly fine. I jumped right back up, and I told him that was amazing, when it really wasn't, because I completely forgot that it hurt the entire time. What had happened was I had died and then just got right back up. The dude's crying because he doesn't know what to do. He thought he was screwed, It didn't work out for him in his favor. That was another sign from God, obviously, that you need to stop messing around. It's getting pretty serious, and I was just right over my head. I went back out to the next house and met some bigger and badder people. I kept climbing the chain of that lifestyle until I got to the top. I was determined to be just like my dad and be at the very top, and then I can just run everything. Thought that was going to work out. I went to this next house, and at this time I was about 19, about to turn 20. I haven't talked to my mom barely, just a couple times a week, and I would just say okay. She'd call me crying, and I would just ask her if she's done. And I was just so gone mentally and emotionally that I just didn't even care anymore. And I chose that lifestyle over my family. I then decided to start shooting up more and more to the point where I started meeting really dangerous people in my life that would actually start to harm me and think it's funny. We used to we'd take people out in fields and just light bonfires, make it look like some hills have eye stuff while we're gassed, and we thought it was hilarious because they're like freaking out. And in all reality, it was pretty scary because I didn't know these people had a reputation for stuff like that. And I'm over here joking around thinking it's just a joke until they whipped up another one of those hot shots, and I got another one that night. And they left me in a house, and later that house was burnt down, but I had stumbled out of it. I don't remember stumbling out of that house. So at that point I realized, okay, none of these people are my friends, but I'm still going to go get high. I'm just going to go to a different town. My mom had suggested rehab multiple times. I had decided that rehab was not an option for me because I'm clearly still alive and I'm invincible because I'm getting high. It didn't work out. Life came at me twice as hard this time. They started running around. They put a word out on Facebook that I was a cop. If I was a cop, I would have been the worst cop I've ever seen because I've never seen a cop just go and shoot up and accidentally kill himself. You know, they put $40,000 over my head one day just because they got tired of me running around just taking all these whoopings and just doing whatever I wanted to do. So they decided to put $40,000 out, and I was beaten black and purple and dumped off at a house, and they couldn't knock me out, so I got right back up and wandered down the road when nobody was paying attention and went back and got high again. They found me in another house. They drugged me out that house. Then they lost me again. I don't really remember a whole lot in this time, but all I remember is for some reason I can get away without even me knowing what I'm doing. So I'm grateful for my mind at least taking over, because I don't think I'd be here today if that wouldn't have happened. This time, my mom had told me that she's no longer going to come to the hospital anymore whenever I have any medical emergencies. Again, sorry, I'm ADHD, so my mind's like 100 mile an hour right now, and I skipped over like a whole lot. But throughout 2 years, I had overdosed at least 6 times from hot shots, and I had stopped my heart at least a couple times, and I don't even know what happened to the other times. I counted up about 14 times I've died just off of using drugs, and I still just didn't care. I tried to go to a rehab in Oakland, Maryland. If anybody knows where that's at, it's Terra Alta, the Hopemont. I went through and I thought this was total BS. Like I said, I got in a lot of trouble, so I got out of prison and weighed 120 pounds still, and I thought I was healthy. My mom's like, "Oh, you look great." I know she was lying to me because I didn't. I went back and looked at pictures today. I was pretty rough. I got out there and I was trying to leave that place as soon as I could. It was mandatory 30 days, and you're on top of a mountain. I don't have a car, so I'm not trying to walk down the hill in the snow. I stuck it out, made my mom happy. And as soon as I got out of that program, I went to Clarksburg to an Oxford house, and then I met this guy that was fresh out of prison that knew the same exact people that I was hanging around with. And I decided, well, let's just get to it then. You know, I'm like, I got 6 months clean, and I'm pretty bored. This Oxford sober stuff sucks, so we started selling drugs and guns out of the Oxford house. And like, I thought that was fun. I mean, granted, there's only 2 people in the whole house that were sleeping at night, so it's pretty obvious whenever certain bedrooms lights are on all night. We got caught pretty quick, so they drug tested us. and we tried to get all the clean guys to pee for us, but that didn't work. I got kicked out of that Oxford house. Later that day, before I was fully packing up my stuff, my mom gave me a phone call, and little did she know I was already getting high, but she was afraid that my emotional status was going to cause me to go get high after she told me this news. My dad was barely around my life. He had 2 other kids, and that was his priority, I thought at the time. So I only got to see him a couple times throughout my life, and I was still attached to him. And she had called me and told me that he had a massive heart attack while cutting the grass, and he didn't make it. And I thought she was joking with me because my dad just seemed like he was that strong-headed person that nothing could happen to him. But after I realized that he actually did die, they waited, and then I found out they waited 2 weeks to tell me because they didn't want me to know, and I missed his funeral and everything. I decided to completely deconstruct the Oxford House from the inside out. So I owed them about $1,500 at the minimum. That's all they wanted because they were going to have to shut down the house. I left that time, went back to Fairmont. I decided I was going to go as hard as I could and just forget about what just happened. I started going back out. Ran into a family member of mine that I didn't even know existed, who had some pull in the motorcycle industry, and he gave me a chance to prospect for that motorcycle club, and it was all over after that. I started doing some pretty stupid crap. I would go into houses. First we started off, we thought it'd be a good idea just to go get all the pedophiles in Fairmont, go whoop them, and just amongst other things. I ended up breaking into so many houses and not getting in trouble for it just because the amount of pull certain people had. And I thought, this is the life to live. I can do whatever I want right now. We can just pay the cop off and then we'd be good to go. Which didn't happen because if anybody's ever heard of a Fallout Boy, their case, they didn't believe my story, who my family was, who was related to at the time. Ended up being one of the founders of the motorcycle club. And I didn't know either. So pretty much I could have done a lot more than I wanted to, and I'm glad I'm not around that right now because that would have done me a lot of harm. We started breaking into houses, and I realized that 2 houses that we broke into, I was recorded beating this guy up for 45 minutes and didn't even know. I blacked out. Well, 2 days later, I guess that guy went missing, and so I was the last person to see him. And I know for a fact I didn't do it, but I just realized how bad it looked. So I decided, well, I'm just going to go to a different town, let that cool down. Come to find out the guy is still missing. They don't know what happened to him. I guess I thought that we scared him and he left because he was talking about leaving town. He still wasn't found, so I'm just hoping that this time he was just decided to leave. I decided to come back to Fairmont. And my mom had pretty much shipped me off to Ohio with my grandparents. They brought me in. They knew of the dilemma that I was an addict, and the people I was hanging around was extremely dangerous for me and for my family. Because people started just showing up at my mom's house asking for me, and didn't even know that she lived there. They just knew that I was there. They followed me around a couple times. Whenever I had made it to Ohio, I started to get sober again. Right before I went to Ohio, I had told somebody I didn't want to do this anymore. So they beat me black and purple and punctured my head with rings that were designed to go through my head. And I had limped down the street. They shattered both my arms, put me through a house, and then drugged me up a road. So I was unrecognizable by the time I showed up at my mom's house. She was terrified, and I told her, I said, they're just right around the corner. I was like, it is what it is. I'm done. It doesn't matter. They can come back and do whatever they want because, they whooped me, but they didn't knock me out. I was still living with that mindset. I thought that I was still invincible. And my mom shipped me off to Ohio, and thought maybe if I'm in a town that I know nobody in except for my family, I won't get high. It took me a week to find somebody at a hotel that brought me to an apartment complex, and then I found crack and meth there up in Ohio too. I started using again. I got a job. The guy held my check, so obviously I was high, so I had a bunch of raging emotions and told him I was going to come to his house and I was going to whoop him and his grandson for some reason. I liked his grandson. I don't know why I said it. So the cops were looking for me up there because of a threat. So I decided, well, I'm going to go down to West Virginia. And right before I decided if I was going to leave or not, my mom gave me a phone call. It seems like every time I decide to go get sober and try to, something brings me back. I was sober for a couple months, and my mom said that my grandmother had passed away. So I come back down to West Virginia for the funeral, and I felt terrible that I had to try to force myself to cry because I grew up with this lady. She took care of me whenever my mom could take care of me, and I was not sad whatsoever during the funeral. And I felt terrible. I felt sad, but I didn't feel sad, if that makes sense. I decided to go leave and go to the retirement home that my grandfather was in. But sure enough, there's people there. Here we go again. The girls that were there, the nurses, were getting high. And so we'd go outside while my grandfather's there while I was taking care of him, and we'd go get high. All the nurses knew me, and they all did drugs. Everybody's really good at hiding it for some reason. And I'm just not. I decided to go start smoking again in the car. And then my grandfather had passed away. And I decided that I just don't want to do it. I'm going to skip out on his funeral. And this is a man that just loved me to death. He wanted to give me everything he had, wanted to help me do things. He loved me so much, and I let him down more than I could think of. My mom knew it was pretty bad. She knew what was going on. I still feel terrible about that. I've let my family down. I've left my family, and I've chose drugs over them every time. This time I decided to just start walking around. Half the people that I knew had already died or overdosed, so I was kind of like only the person. There's like 3 people in that whole town that I got high with that I knew. These new people rolled in, and they were from Detroit, New York, Philadelphia, North Carolina, Florida. There's a whole bunch of people. I didn't recognize one single person in that town. So I decided, well, I guess I'm going to have to just stand up. And I was like, I'm going to be the king of this town. That's going to work out. We started walking into places, and we started selling heroin. I sold about $400,000 of heroin a month from Detroit, and racked up a total of about almost $30 million of heroin, and have no money to prove it. I spent it all on dope. Paid my rent for a little bit, lost my house, lost my truck due to vandalism because of people getting high. I've lost about everything I ever had. Lost jobs, trust gone, family gone, friends, I don't have none. Friends that I have now are the brothers at Recovery Point because they're the only ones that I do now. Without them, I probably honestly would have left Recovery Point here recently and probably wouldn't got high because I just don't deal with things very well. I don't know what clicked here recently, but I'll skip back a little bit. Whenever I went to this house, and it was the biggest spot to get dope in the entire area. The guy would hand you Walmart bags full of meth and just tell you to have at it, and you can smoke it all day long. He spent thousands of dollars just to give it to people for free. And they knew how to take care of themselves, and they knew how to eat and maintain their drug habit. I didn't. I just got high, and I decided I'm going to start helping these people out. Well, here comes those people again in that motorcycle club. I guess they were a part of it the whole time, and they filled the whole driveway up. And at this time, I weighed a little bit more, so they thought I was sober. So I started hanging around them. Found out that the person that had stolen my motorcycle and everything that I owned and all the pictures of me as a kid with my dad was the one coming in the house the whole time. And I was planning on doing something stupid at that house, and they decided that I was no longer welcome at that house. So I decided to finally go to Harmony Ridge, and I gave sobriety one last chance, tried to work for me. I didn't really feel welcome at that place. I decided to get out that program, go to an Oxford House, and get high at the Oxford House. I used to run Oxford Houses before. At a young age, I was given that option. So I was given another option to run and open up my own Oxford House in Morgantown. So I did do that, and it turned it into a trap house. We went to Maryland, started stealing copper, like spools of copper in truckloads, because we thought we could just sell $100,000 worth of copper and nobody would notice. So I was kicked out of that Oxford House, came back to Harmony Ridge, completed that program, and I had one person tell me, he's like, "Why don't you go to Recovery Point?" He's like, "Cause I think you need it." He goes, "You're too stubborn. You can't even make it a week." I decided to come to Recovery Point, and I thought that this place was just a big old waste of time. Terry over here, he was just always happy, and I was like, this guy's definitely still high. And it was just his, Yeah, yes, sir. I decided to start opening up some more, and I don't know what clicked. I think it was between my old bunkie back there and Terry constantly just giving me crap all day long about me just getting mad over small stuff. And I had an immediate spiritual change when I came here. I've never been baptized before. I've never went to church. I went to church when I was with my mom when I was younger, and this was just different for me. I felt like I needed to be here. I used to be into Odinism. That was my thing. I studied religion, and a couple people are a little upset in the program because I gave up that religion, but I feel more connected here. I've never been in a church and felt so much happiness, and I've never felt this happy before. I feel real connected with all the people at Recovery Point. They help me every day. They teach me new things in and out. I know now I have people in my life that I can count on. If I need 50 cents or $50, I know they'll help me. And if they don't have it, they'll find somebody that does. And then same thing with this church. Old Just Tan back there. I'm extremely grateful for him for bringing me to this church because I feel like I found me a new home. Thank you.
For putting him on the spot, he did really good. So, anybody that ever has a doubt that God can't do it, I got news for you. He can. And I share the same thing with you, man. Like in February, what was it? February of last year? Year before last. No, when I decided. Anyway, so I struggled with the same problem. Like when I first came to this church, I wore a hammer around my neck. I did it for years, and something about this church, when I got in and started like getting around people, I decided that that's what I needed to do was put it down, and my life has just decided to get better and better and better and better. The more that I like start to turn things over to God, the better my life gets. So I'm not going to keep you guys anymore. Where's Austin at? Paris, come here. I'm going to have Austin pray it out, and if you guys need prayer, we'll be up here. Because Austin prays better than I do.
It's not a competition. All right, guys, if we can just take a moment.
Tim wanted us to announce if people want to do their testimony or anything like that. Okay. So, sorry, guys. If anybody wants to do their testimony or, like, when I get up on Thursdays and do, like, little small teachings, me and Austin do the same thing. If you guys are interested in that or giving your testimony or anything of that sort, stop back at the booth and let me know so I can get you guys signed up and we can get you guys in line to do all that.
Give a round of applause to Dave one time. Give a round of applause to the Holy Spirit one time. All right, guys, it was a lot of fun tonight. We're going to go ahead and pray this out. Heavenly Father, we just thank you. Heavenly Father, we just thank you that we can all gather in your house to hear your word, to hear the stories of those that were lost but you rescued. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the love. We thank you for the blessings. We thank you for the motivation. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the testimonies of countless individuals that have chosen not to waste their grace. Heavenly Father, as we go forward from here, all we can ask is that you empower us with that same grace. Heavenly Father, we just thank you. Thank you for the purpose that you've placed inside each and every one of us. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.